Alright guys, this is mission 3, Poking the Bear. In this mission we're playing as Headquarters and Headquarters Company of Task Force 369. Brigade S2 has detected a large brigade-sized force moving east of our flank. They're pushing from the southeast north towards MSR Hawk, which is the Mike 05 highway running from Bielitsa to Kiev. Command believes that their intent is to cut us off from Kiev and threaten the brigade's flank. Our mission is to perform zone reconnaissance, locate the mobile Russian forces. Once identified, delay them with joint fires to prevent enemy forces from blocking MSR Hawk, which is the Mike 05 highway. Commander's intent to defeat the threat to the Division MSR. So this mission is going to involve establishing observation posts on named areas of interest 1 and 2, engaging with fires to neutralize enemy air defenses, and then using CAS to attrit the enemy forces. Desired end state is Russian forces attrited not less than 40%, and task force scouts at 80% or greater strength. In our task force that we have here, Headquarters and Headquarters Company, we have the name of the formation is called Hardcore. We have the Scout Platoon, Mortar Platoon, 1st Brigade Combat Team, Colt Team, Brigade JTAC, and then we have 2 elements from the 2nd Cavalry Regiment, Iron Red 1, which is a rifle platoon, and Hammer 2-1, which is the anti-tank section. MGS strikers. We also have a Grey Eagle, flight of F-15 Echoes, Panther flight. We have flight of F-16 Juliets, Mako flight, another flight of F-16s, and then a flight of AH-64s. It says S2 indicates that enemies of a Russian mech brigade are moving through the area. Enemy units are moving parallel to our positions in the vicinity of named area of interest 1 and 2, moving from the east towards the northwest. Radar indicates self-propelled anti-aircraft, probably Tunguskas. Basically, the plan of execution is to move by echelon, approach Ul-Ishikva from the south, establish OPs to observe NAAs 1 and 2, identify air defenses, engage and destroy enemy air defenses, execute CAS on the route, continue to engage until Winchester, meaning out of air-to-ground ordnance, or the Russian elements are defeated. Once the 2nd Cavalry Regiment elements are in position, orient the strikers on defeating Russian counterattacks, utilize AT assets, etc., etc. It says here, once the Russians detect your presence, they will likely send armored elements to destroy your OPs. We're going to get to that in a second. And this mission was made by Lieutenant Colonel Scott Carlson, who, if you look him up, if you Google him, he's a active Lieutenant Colonel, armor guy, has a ton of experience. And because I know that he's the mission maker, I can sort of anticipate what's going to be in this mission, just because as a Lieutenant Colonel, he was probably came on during the Gulf War, and he was probably originally trained to fight Russians. So because of that, he probably knows a lot about their tactics and order of battle and tactics. So because of that, we can sort of anticipate his moves. Alright, so starting off here, we have our section of scouts. We have, in the Headquarters Company, we have an ATGM vehicle, just a Humvee with a tow. Got our sniper section, JTAC, Brigade Colt, and our mortar platoon. This terrain is extremely perilous. You'll see here, we're going to start from the west and then roll east. It's essentially a valley leading west to east that has hills on either side, but it's heavily forested, and there's very few areas that the enemy can move through, as well as very few areas of observation. This right here is named Area of Interest 1. This is where the enemy will likely organize along this road. And they'll come in from the east here from NIA 2. Probably over this causeway 14 maybe. So the enemy is going to be moving east to west along this valley. So from this perspective, the enemy is going to be rolling east to west. Now, we have some reconnaissance already on the map, and if you know anything about the organization of a Russian brigade, you'll know that they basically have a phased echelon movement order, so to speak. It starts off with the division recon or brigade recon, basically the highest level reconnaissance, and that's usually a company of light recon forces. And that's probably what these guys are, screening the parallel to the valley. So you can see here, recon has infantry contacts and maybe a vehicle, also here in the tree line. Parallel south of the main axis of enemy advance. So this is the main axis of advance. From here, we're looking east. Basically, this road is headed east to west. They're going to roll through this valley, and then they're going to try to escape, or they're going to try to exit to the north. Once they exit to the north, they would have outflanked our brigade, and then we're in trouble. Anyway, a Russian brigade or regimental sized attack usually starts with a division recon, and that's going to be a company of light forces, and they're usually here about an hour before the enemy main effort arrives. So we didn't expect, a platoon of light recon here, a platoon here, I guess. I'm just judging off of what's on the map, the reconnaissance that's been revealed, and probably another platoon here in this little hamlet here. So they're probably going to have Tigers. It's going to be like the forces that I engaged in the first mission. They'll probably have Tigers and some dismount teams, ATGM ambushes and RPG ambushes. But in addition to that, within, I would say, and then they probably have some heavier security elements throughout the town and through the axis of advance. So these guys probably arrived about a half an hour ago. They probably include, up to like a company of tanks and BMPs and their dismounts. There's probably a bunch of them in NAI-1. Looks like there might be some tanks here in this tree line as well. They are probably oriented directly down, facing across from Causeway 11, directly to where we're approaching from. So that road right there is probably a kill zone leading to our flot, and we're not going to move anyone down that road. It also looks like there's some roadblocks there too. Anyway, they probably have a security screen already through the valley. That's what all those guys are on the north side of the embankment. And they probably have their air defenses already in place. Now, within 15 minutes, I'd expect to see what are known as combat reconnaissance patrols. Okay, this is all like Soviet-era doctrine, but it applies to the Russians now. So within 15 minutes, they're probably going to arrive, and that's going to be tanks and BMP platoons, and they're going to try to exploit the ground and defeat any counterattacks that we pose. So if they spot us, they're going to probably send their CRPs against our positions and try to fuck us up so we can't get eyes onto NAI 1 and 2 and calling CAS on them. So they'll probably be mobile forces that are going to try to push out from the main road headed east to west, and they're probably going to try to attack into our area, basically to dislodge us so that we cannot effect fires onto the route. About 20 to 30 minutes after the CRPs are established in the zone, we'll probably see the advanced guard main body. That is typically a battalion-sized element, heavily reinforced, that has a ridiculous amount of firepower and is designed essentially to break through any resistance so that the rest of the brigade or rest of the regiment, the main body of the regiment or brigade, can follow on and exploit that. So what I anticipate we'll see within about 45 minutes is we'll see at least a battalion rolling down this road. So within 45 minutes, we need to have everything in place so that we can effect fires onto the enemy. And this timeline that I'm creating for myself is from my understanding of Russian doctrine, and I'm assuming that the scenario creator, Scott, he also understands Russian doctrine, and he's mimicking that to make this a fun scenario. So, following that chain of reasoning, I'm going to now analyze the terrain, and I'm going to make some assumptions based upon the terrain. I'm going to go ahead and assume that there is a platoon of recon forces here. I wish I could make marks on the map so we could call this something. This crossroads here. We got a little signs here in Cyrillic. We're going to assume that there's a recon platoon here in a blocking position. Maybe with an ATGM, because it wouldn't really make sense for them to just be sitting there on a road. They might have like a AGS or maybe an ATGM pointed this way towards that hill over there to the west. I'm also going to anticipate another platoon here in this tree line. And again, I'm just basing this off of the revealed reconnaissance markers that I see. If I didn't have these revealed markers, I would guess more generally. I'd try to estimate more generally. So I'd say like if there was a division security screen, they'd be somewhere south of that river, somewhere south of the main MSR. Then looks like we have scattered reports here and here of probably another platoon. So that's our company right there. That's our division or regimental reconnaissance. Then we have probably a platoon of tanks looking down the road to where we're deploying from, which is pretty clear. Then we have some scattered vehicle contacts over here by NAA-2. Those are probably air defenses, believe it or not. Those are probably Tunguskas, SA-13s, maybe some Shilkas. I don't know if they have Shilkas in this game, but they're going to be some form of self-propelled artillery. What I'm really worried about is this position here, the construction company position. The reason for that is they could have air defenses right here in this position where this track is marked, and I wouldn't be able to actually observe this position from anywhere, I don't think. Maybe all the way up there on that hill, but even then it would be another threat. Another issue there is that if there's a Tunguska here or a tank or something, they could really dominate this hill that I'm looking at here to the south. You see this hill? This is where the Russian... This is basically one possible approach I can make. Approach avenue. So I did fly around this map a little bit before I started talking because, honestly, you could spend an hour or more just analyzing this terrain and coming up with plans and contingencies. I'm just going to sort of wing it just for the sake of fun. But I do think that, well, first of all, just to summarize our terrain, I believe that they're going to move, their advanced guard main body from NAI2 through this valley here, and then through NAI1, and then they're going to exit to the north. And I think before they do that, they're going to push at least a company of armor into the valley, and they're going to try to exploit into our ground. So we need to be prepared to defend against those counterattacks. We also need to establish observation posts, and we need to destroy the division recon, regimental recon, whatever you want to call them. These guys need to be destroyed because they're blocking us from creating our own observation posts. We essentially need to replace them with our guys. Problem there is that, if we do that, it's going to cue the CRPs, the combat reconnaissance patrols that I talked about before. It's going to cue them to attack into our newly established positions. So this mission has a potential for, huge casualty rates. And especially considering we only have a headquarters and headquarters company, which is not many men. It's probably about, 50 men, 60 men in total here in the entire company. Now, there will be a second echelon coming on of another scout section, which will probably be just a copy of these guys here. This is a scout section. It's 2 Humvees with some dismounts. We'll probably see another section of those guys come on, and they might have another Bradley with them, which I think is the XO's track. This is the platoon leader's track. Oh, no, this is the XO's track. Okay, so the platoon leader has not arrived yet for the... Has he? Oh, he's in this track. He's in the Humvee for some reason. Anyway, I believe there will be another Bradley coming on as well. And then after them, am I doing? Go to menu, briefing. After them, so they'll arrive in, what, 5 minutes? Is that it? Yeah, they'll be here in 5 minutes. The second echelon will be here in 5 minutes. And then 10 minutes after them at 09:15 will be the Striker Rifle Platoon and a section of ATGM Platoon. Striker ATGM Platoon. So within about 20 minutes, the entire team will be deployed. So what I want to do starting off is I need to establish OPs, and I need to aggressively clear some of this ground. It has to be very aggressive because we don't have the time. We can't allow their CRPs to arrive before we can observe them. Otherwise, we'll have our OPs destroyed. So what I did before is I basically went to the NAI, and then I tried to draw a direct line from the NAIs to surrounding terrain that we could use to establish observation posts. Obviously, it can't be too close, otherwise they're going to get interdicted by fire. And I want to point out that we are not going to beat the Russians in a conventional firefight in this mission. So I can't, for instance, see if you go up on this hill here, let me show you what I'm talking about. If you go to NAI 2, you look around, you'll find that this hill over here to the west, yeah, right there, extraordinarily prominent view of the NAI 2, right there. There's just one problem with that, I know the guy who made this scenario, he's not an idiot, and he's probably trying to think like the Russians would think, and I guarantee you that this position right here, looking towards NAI 2, is going to get artied. It's probably going to get artied, and they'll probably send CRPs up here. Now, it's possible that we can infiltrate here with dismounts, and then from there establish observation posts quietly, but we're not going to win a firefight here. So if I try to put, vehicles here to have a firefight with the Russians coming in from NAI 2, that is not going to work. They're going to have multiple companies of tanks headed through this valley. It's not going to be possible to engage them in a conventional firefight. What we're going to do with our forces is we're going to try to kill their screens. We're going to try to kill their air defenses. We're going to try to kill any high-value targets we can with ATGMs. But the main attrition will occur through air support. That is the intent. That is my intent. So let's start blabbing, and let's actually get everyone organized. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make 2 teams here. I'm going to make 2 platoon company minus size teams. I'm going to have the section of scouts. I'm going to have the alpha section of scouts basically go up the southern flank, and their job is going to be to do a few things. They're going to first priority is to scout out the construction company and destroy any air defenses that are in the vicinity of the construction company. We'll have our Bradley that has tows, so we should be able to engage those air defenses from there. Their second task is going to be to establish observation posts along the way. So for instance, from this position, now we don't want to occupy that with a vehicle because there's tanks that are apparently in the vicinity of this tree line that I'm looking at now. But we could potentially have a scout team just here, and that will also get us eyes on the construction company as well as partial eyes towards NAI 2. So we'll set up observation posts as we can. My main intent is to set up observation posts somewhere vicinity of this enemy platoon that we're going to destroy. So we're going to destroy this platoon right here. We're going to destroy this platoon right here in this tree line. So we have to destroy 2 platoons. And then what I want to do is I'm going to infiltrate by foot. I'm going to establish an OP here on NAI 2. And I want another OP. This prominent hill right here, it's very prominent. This hill is an amazing spot for an observation post. It's, what we can do from this position is we can actually hide right here, and we'll see them as they pass us, and we'll have direct eyes onto the road leading towards the exit. But we're going to have to fight for these positions. They're going to be occupied by the enemy reconnaissance forces, and we have very few dismounts. One thing that I realized when I did my quick analysis before I started talking, is that I need to treat these Humvees as if they're dismount squads or teams, I can't treat them as if they're vehicles, because we're not going to win in a vehicle fight here, you know? We might, I'm going to keep them mounted when they, moving up to their initial observation post, or their initial staging areas, and then I'm going to dismount them, and I'm going to have them infiltrate by foot. I do not think I can win in a firefight against the Russians in this environment. So for instance, this is a brigade cult, right? The cult is basically an extremely powerful, observation team that, in this particular cult, has a M1200 Armored Knight, which is a vehicle designed to be a observation lasing vehicle. That being said, I don't think I can use the vehicle, because I think the vehicle will get killed. So I'm going to actually dismount those fuckers, and they're going to go on foot. I might, use the vehicle to get to initial point, initial RV, but after that, that's it. Same thing with the, if you look at the snipers here, in this sniper Humvee here, there's 3 guys in the vehicle, right? Well, why don't I just dismount them? And then I'll have a 3-man team, another 3-man team in the back, and then I'll have the commander. That's 7 guys right there in that Humvee. There's no point in keeping them mounted. Same thing with anything that I can't use in a firefight, I'm going to dismount. The one vehicle I am going to remain mounted is I have a tow Humvee. I'm going to basically put that in a high position, and I might roll it out on demand to pop at a very high value target, but I'm not going to try to use it in a long range attrition war. I only think the vehicle it only has 6 tows anyway, so it's not going to be able to attrit very much. It's mainly going to be used just for high value targets. So let's split up our forces. We're going to have 2 teams. The team over here that I was talking about before on the south, their job is to establish OPs south of the main axis of enemy advance, as well as destroy the 2 reconnaissance platoons here and here. Also, I believe I'm going to also give them, I'm going to give them half of the scout section too, just to set up observation posts. So that team will be the half of the scout platoon and a scout section. Okay, over here on the western flank, I want to, first things first is we're going to avoid this road like the plague. We are not going down this road under any circumstances. It's an obvious kill zone. There's probably ATGMs. Oh, there's karaoke here. Awesome. There's probably ATGMs and other nasty shit sighted right at this crossroads here. This, this house right here that I'm looking at right now would be a great observation post. But onto NEI 1. But I know that there's tanks sighted in on this position, and the only way I'm going to be able to take that position is by infiltrating up to it, maybe undercover, and then killing the team. Maybe there's enemy scouts in there. It's too risky at this point. Maybe the second echelon of scouts that are as my follow-on forces will try to attack that position. But as it is right now, it's too risky. Anyway, on this flank, I'm going to send the JTAC, the Colt, the tow Humvee, and a squad of snipers. The headquarters, company headquarters, which is basically a captain, I'm just going to leave him in cover. He's basically going to do nothing all game. I just don't want him to die. And I don't want him to be, I'm too hesitant using him to basically, I don't have the balls to send him into combat, so we're not going to send him into combat. First things first is, let's remain west of this ASR here. I don't want to be anywhere near this ASR leading this way. No thank you. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deck all these guys out with AT4s. Every man's going to have an AT4. I want to be able to respond to any ambushes that we deal with. Even the snipers are going to be carrying AT-4s. I know this seems excessive, but I don't care. I need to be able to respond to ambushes. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to dismount these. Just because the Colt doesn't have any AT in it, I'm actually going to dismount. Just going to do a little shuffle here so I can get the Colt guys some AT-4s as well. And get them some grenades and some more 5.56. Get my JTAC and AT-4. You know shit's got real if your JTACs are gonna have to pull out an AT-4. I'm just giving the actual vehicle crew AT-4s now as well. Did I do that over here? I think I did, but no, I didn't. I forgot to do that. That's fine. Alright, these guys are all kitted up. I think we're good now. Alright, now to set some initial movement orders. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly move through these tree lines here. I don't have to really worry about concealment or anything like that right now because these are unobserved routes. I know you guys were talking in some of the... You guys were leaving some comments about that, saying that I'm insane for so hastily issuing orders. I just don't care. If they're unobserved motion, then I just don't care. I'm not worried about them getting killed. Like you can see now, I'm very sloppily issuing orders to those zombies. Oh, I should also mention that I'm using a ton of different mods in this video. Yeah, Imperial Grunt from the forums was cool enough to give me all his mods, so I'm using some of them in this, and like there's a really awesome particle mod and sound mod, so you guys will see that in action shortly. Okay, this flank actually requires a little bit more finesse, because very soon this, yeah, see right here, okay, you know what? Yeah, see right here, I believe we might be able to see what's on the construction company. So I'm worried about that. These guys will move up with, what's that stupid hotkey to show all the vehicle paths? Alt-P. Okay, that didn't do anything. Is it right Alt-P? Okay, whatever. Oh, there it is. It's decided to actually show itself now. So what we'll do is we'll just move up the other vehicles as well, but we won't crest the hill. Until the others are in position. Because those are our initial movement orders. Oh, I totally forgot to say what these guys' orders were on this side. So these guys are actually going to set up a OP at this position here that I was talking about before. But what we're going to do is we're not going to occupy this in force. We're going to infiltrate it with men, with dismounts. I'm going to dismount the vehicle somewhere over here in this clearing. So just to give you some reference, we're going to dismount the vehicle somewhere over here. And then I'm going to do a dismounted infiltration to this tree line. And from this tree line, we should be able to observe NAI-1. The second echelon of scouts will maybe try to set up an OP here. And we also have the strikers. I'm going to use the strikers actually as blocking forces to the CRPs. And we don't really know where the CRPs are going to deploy yet or where. We may set up like an ATGM firing line, like a javelin firing line somewhere like right here. Because from this position here, even though it's probably sighted in by the enemy, we can probably ambush a lot of the forces headed through this AO. So we'll try to set up some javelins there. Okay. Okay, they're set. Last thing to do, preparatory fires. We can't really call in the aircraft, and that's because the aircraft are probably going to get knocked out by stupid SAMs. I am going to risk deploying some Ravens, though, onto these positions that we're going to attack. Reason for that is that I really want to know what's there. So we're just going to call that in. We're going to call that in on the 2 suspected platoons that we're going to be attacking. We're also going to call in UAVs. And the cult team. We'll use the cult team. I'm going to call in a UAV onto this tree line as well. And, alright, artillery. First things first is, I think I'm gonna use my howitzers to call in preparatory fires on these 2 tracked whatevers right here. Do a linear fire mission. And we'll do medium, medium, general. That is going to use a lot of our ammunition. It seems excessive. You know what? Let's cancel that. I basically can convince myself not to do that. And the reason for that is we're going to need the paladins to do precision fires onto other seed, for further seed purposes. Let's do light, short, general. Okay. Next fire mission we're going to do is let's go ahead and think about softening up these other enemy positions. So like right here, let's call in medium, medium, general.
Requesting fire mission. Over.
And let's call in right here in this tree at this crossroads. We'll call in medium, medium, general. Basically, we're just calling in some suppression missions on these positions. You know, I don't want to have a firefight. Like I said, my objective is to avoid having a firefight.
Request fire. Over. Roger. Fire mission request.
If I'd like my scouts just to occupy the ground with no fighting, that would be great. All right, let's go ahead and save this, and let's finally kick it off. Oh, just so you guys see. Taking a long time to save. Please don't crash. Oh god.